All right, so we are ready to take our notes. So we're still graphing. They're just going to look slightly different. They're not going to be a straight line. So in absolute values, sometimes things are added and subtracted. And so x1 and y1, just like in point slope, is a point that's on the graph. And then the graph will be the V shape. Now, and then in Algebra 2, so in Algebra 1, we just focus on things being a V shape from a certain point. In Algebra 2, there's sometimes the V's go upside down, and sometimes they're fat V's, and sometimes they're skinny V's. But in Algebra 1, we just learned the base. And then in Algebra 2, you add a slope value, which then does a little bit more with it. So this is just a building block for next year. I'm going to say, have you guys all adjusted to this weather, or you're not ready for the cold? Well, I've heard that this weekend it's supposed to be back up in the 70s, so I'm going to say we're camping for fall break, so I'm really hoping that it warms up a little bit.
We're going to Michigan.
I'm not going to lie, I was just sitting outside of my camper yesterday morning before church, and I was ready to start a fire. Just eating breakfast outside, I was like, I can't do this. So I'm hoping it's a little warmer next week.
Hoping it's not like in the 20s in Michigan, which is probably going to be.
I don't think it'll be that cold. How far north are you going?
It's about like the middle, like along the lake. Well, here.
Like right there.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the Michigan, like talking about Michigan with your hand until I went to college. And at Purdue, a lot of kids from Michigan go to Purdue just because it's not really that far into Indiana for them. And so, like, it's just so funny because, like, they'll be like, where are you from? And they're like, oh, well, I'm about here. And I was just like, what? And they're like, oh, that's how you describe Michigan. It looks like a mitten, and so you just point to where you're at. And that's how they tell people where they're from. Like, unless they're from, like, Ann Arbor or, like, one of the bigger cities, if they are from just a random town, they just point to their hand. It's the strangest thing. All right, so we are ready to do some examples. And so we are going to look at things like this. All right, so the first example I have pulled up is the absolute value of x minus 3. All right, so the first thing that we are going to do is we have, just like we did with point slope on Friday, we have to find the point to start. So I'm just going to rewrite so if we look at this, if x1 is what's being subtracted, what is the x coordinate that we are going to graph going to be? I'm going to say it's x minus x1. So what would be our x coordinate? So x1 is the number that's inside. We have a number that's inside here. What is that? It's a 3. Now, is there anything being added here on the outside? So what do you think the y coordinate is if it's not there? 0. So this is going to be our starting point because that is x1 and y1. So what we are going to do is we would make a point at 3, 0, which goes over to the right 3 and stays on the x-axis. And then from this point, we just make a V shape going up 1 and out 1 each direction. And so we go, once we have this point, then we go up 1 and to the right and make a point, and then we make 1 to the left, and then we connect it and make a V shape. Now, and with the V shape, this is just something we need to memorize. And so do you guys remember when we were solving absolute value equations, we always had 2 answers? In this one, it's an absolute value graph that goes in 2 directions. So it explains having the 2 answers. And just remember, in Algebra 1, we just need to know that it's a V shape. In Algebra 2, what will happen is there will be a number in front here that will change. It could be a regular V, it could go upside down, it could make it really fat, it could make it really skinny, just depending on that slope value. So that's not anything we need to worry about for now. We just need to know where the starting point is, and then know it's a V shape. So we're going to do lots of different examples because I really want to make sure that we know how to find that starting point. That's the big key of today. So if we look at that second example, we have to find x1 and y1 to know where we start. So for the x, is there anything being subtracted from the x? So what do you think the x coordinate is? 0. And what's the y coordinate? 4. Now, and one thing that you guys will see, you guys see how we're subtracting the x? So the x coordinate will always be the opposite sign of what you see in the equation. The y coordinate is being added, so it's always the same sign of what you see. So on this one, we would start at 0, 4. So we would go from 0 up to 4 on the y-axis. And then from that point, we go up 1, and then we make a point to each side. And then we connect, I don't know, my shadow is in the way or what it is today, but it's not doing a good job writing. And then it makes a V. Right, so I wanted to make sure that we had an example with some zeros in it. I'll say, do you guys have any questions before we try one that has 2 numbers? All right, let's scroll down and try these. So I'll give you guys some time to make your graphs and then we'll talk about it. So if you guys want to go ahead and copy down 3 and 4. Nevaeh, are you done with weddings for a while?
Yeah, I'm done.
I was like, my goodness. It was just like, has it been the last 3 weekends?
Yeah.
So for this next one, the absolute value of x plus 3 and then minus 3. All right, so just remember, it's always the opposite sign of the x, the same sign for the y coordinate. So if like that is because this actually comes from x minus -3, which turns it into a positive. So a -3, when you would plug it in, would change it to a positive. All right, and then the y coordinate stays the same. So if we see a -3 on the y, it stays a -3. I have no idea what it's changing. All right, so then once we have that point, we just simply graph. We go to -3 on the x, -3 on the y, and we make a point. And then from there, we can make our V shape. All right, you guys are super, super quiet today. You got to tell me what you're thinking. Because I know this is completely new. But we just got to be able to pick out that point. All right, so this is the last one we're going to do together. All right, so what do you guys think the coordinates of our starting point is going to be? What do you guys think about the x coordinate? You guys think it's going to be a +2 or a -2? It's going to be a +2 and a -1. Very good. So then we can make our point, +2, -1, and then make a point up 1 and out 1 each direction, and make our V-shaped graph. All right, are you guys ready to try a couple by yourself? All right, here we go. You guys started your graph for this number 5. -4, -4. very picky. Technically, whenever you guys have something like this, we should probably, when we draw our line, stop there. We should probably extend it as far as it can go. You're saying we probably should. I'm not going to be super picky about that. Our x1 is -4, our y1 is -4. All right, now where did you guys start number 6? 0, -3. So then we go down to -3. Then we make our V shape going up 1 and out 1. Extend our graph. And say, how many of you guys think that you could do some work like this? Sound good? All right, I actually think I'm going to change something on our plans for tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys work on today's stuff, and I'm going to make some changes. I think I just want to show you what the regular plan was. Our regular plan was to go ahead and do the second day of absolute values tomorrow, which is no different than what it was today. I actually think we're going to learn the other concept tomorrow, and then you guys can go back and do that second day. Oh, how do I want to do this? I don't think we need 2 days for this. I think I'm going to move the new stuff up to Tuesday, put the review on Wednesday, and then we will just do some in-class review and give you guys all day Thursday. We can do stuff on whiteboards. You guys can ask questions about your homework. You can do anything like that. And if you guys have questions on the homework from last week, this would be the time to ask. But I'm going to make some adjustments because I just don't think that we need 2 days for this. We'll just have it on our review and we'll do extra practice on Thursday.